You know, we all know the giants of the NFL, right? The Packers, the Bears, the Cowboys. Their histories are basically written in stone. But what about the teams that are, well, just footnotes? The ones that popped up for a few chaotic seasons and then just vanished. Today, we're digging up the story of a city whose brief and frankly disastrous time in the NFL has been almost totally forgotten.
So, when you think of classic NFL cities, what pops into your head? Green Bay, Chicago, Dallas, for sure. I am willing to bet that Louisville, Kentucky is not on that list. But you know what? For a very brief moment, back in the league's chaotic early days, it was.
Actually, scratch that. Louisville didn't just have one NFL team. Oh no, they had two. And it is a strange, short, and just disastrous chapter of football history that's been almost completely lost to time. So let's get into it.
Okay, so meet the Louisville Breckenridges, or Brecs for short, and their kind of phantom successor, the Louisville Connells. Now their story isn't one of glory. It's more of a wild ride through the early days of pro football, and it's filled with neighborhood spirit, some absolutely brutal losses, and even a bit of real-life tragedy.
It's crazy. Their entire history played out in just a handful of years. What started as just a local neighborhood club back in 1899 somehow escalated into an NFL franchise by 1921. But disaster struck almost immediately, and by 1926, professional football in Louisville was just gone. Let's break down how it all went so wrong so fast.
So how did a team even get started back then? You got to forget multi-billion-dollar deals and taxpayer-funded stadiums. For the Louisville Brecs, it all started right there in their own neighborhood.
You know, a local paper at the time really captured their whole vibe perfectly, calling them a boys' neighborhood team that had just kept itself intact. This wasn't some collection of hired guns from all over the country. These were local guys who grew up playing together and basically just turned pro as a unit.
So how does a local club like that make the massive leap to the NFL? Well, there was no complex bidding war, no big citywide campaign. The team's owner, a guy named Aaron Hertzman, he just mailed the league a letter. And inside that letter, a check. And the check, it was for $25. 25. Just let that sink in for a second. For what it costs to get a couple of beers at a game today, Aaron Hertzman bought an entire NFL franchise in 1921. I mean, that's a perfect snapshot of just how ramshackle and, well, different the league was in its infancy.
So getting into the league for $25? Turns out that was the easy part. Staying in it? Yeah, that was a whole different story. The Brecs were about to get a very brutal lesson in what it meant to play with the big boys. This one score really says it all. 59-0, a complete and utter demolition by the Racine Legion. And unfortunately for the Brecs, blowouts like this, they weren't the exception, they were the rule.
Just take a look at their 1922 season. Okay, so they did manage their first and only NFL victory, a 13-6 win over Evansville. But get this, that was the only game all season where they scored a single point. Every other game was a shutout loss, just a series of absolute beatings from the more established teams. And as if getting completely crushed on the field wasn't bad enough, real-life tragedy struck. Just a few days after that one and only victory, their home stadium, Eclipse Park, burned to the ground. This was the final blow, forcing them to cancel their last home games and wiping out any chance they had of breaking even.
So after the fire and another winless season in 1923, the writing was on the wall. The Brecs were done. But the story of Louisville's time in the NFL has one final, very bizarre chapter, the tale of the Louisville Colonels. But before they folded for good, the Brecs had one last game, and it was against a truly unique opponent, the Orang Indians. This was an all-Native American team, and it featured one of the greatest athletes of all time, the legendary Jim Thorpe. So even in defeat, the Brecs went out playing against a true piece of football history.
And if you think that's interesting, the story of the Orang Indians is a whole other level of weird. I mean, they weren't just a football team. They were a traveling marketing gimmick. The owner used the team to promote his Airedale Terrier kennels, and the players would put on Native American cultural displays and even dog shows at halftime. You really can't make this stuff up.
So after the Brecs folded, the NFL brought the Louisville name back in 1926 with the Colonels. But this was a completely different beast. The Brecs, for all their faults, they were a real local team. The Colonels, they were a traveling team based out of Chicago that just used the Louisville name for a season.
And if you thought the Brecs were bad,
Well, the Colonels achieved a level of futility that is almost impressive. The number you're looking at, that's the total number of points they scored in their entire 1926 season. 0. Not a single point in 4 league games. Zilch.
So after a few brutal seasons with the Brecks and one historically pointless season with the Colonels, Louisville's time in the NFL was officially over. It was a short, strange, and just utterly unsuccessful experiment from start to finish.
I mean, when you add it all up, Louisville's combined NFL record stands at a really bleak 1 win and 12 losses. That single victory back in 1922 is the only thing separating the city from complete and total NFL futility.
But here it is, one last fantastic twist. Remember Aaron Hertzman, the owner who got his team for $25? Well, even after his team completely failed, the league must have liked the guy. They actually elected him as the NFL's sergeant-at-arms, responsible for keeping order at league meetings. In a perfect bit of irony, the owner of one of the league's most chaotic franchises became its official enforcer.
So what's the takeaway from all this? The story of the Brecks and Colonels is more than just a historical oddity. It's a chaotic, fascinating glimpse into the NFL's Wild West origins. You know, Kentucky's last major pro team was basketball's ABA Colonels way back in the 70s. So it leaves us with a lingering question. Will the Bluegrass State ever get another shot at the big leagues?